The April evening outside the window was slowly fading, painting the sky in soft, almost translucent shades. In moments like these, one feels time especially keenly, when the city's noise dies away and it seems one could hear the very breathing of life. Now it is time to tell you a true jewel from my collection. This is the story of one woman, of a long waiting, of a tin box on the top shelf of a cupboard, and of that it is never too late simply to buy a one-way ticket. This is the story of a sea that waited for 57 years. Make yourselves comfortable, forget your household chores for a while, and simply listen. We begin. You don't understand, miss. I don't want a return ticket. I only need one way. I'll buy the return when I decide I want to come back. The cashier looked at me as though I had announced I was about to hijack a plane. She was about 25, no older. Her nails were sharp, lacquered the color of overripe cherries. On her ring finger, a stone-set ring. She probably flies off every holiday to Turkey, Egypt, Thailand. For her, buying a plane ticket is like buying a loaf of bread at the local shop. And there I stood before her at 57, in the jacket I had worn for the 4th season, with a shoulder bag containing my passport, wallet, spare tights, sandwiches with boiled sausage wrapped in foil, and a little icon of a tea. Nicholas the wonderworker that my neighbor Ludmila Stepanovna had pressed into my hands when she heard I was going somewhere far away. Somewhere far away. Kaliningrad. 2 hours in the air. For some people, nothing at all. For me, the edge of the world. My name is Irina. I am 57, and I am flying on a plane for the first time in my life. Alone, without permission. It sounds ridiculous, I know. Permission from whom, exactly? I am 57 years old. I am an adult, I have a passport, money, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a full legal right to go wherever I please. But that was the point. Legal rights I had always had, internal rights, never. For 34 years I had asked, checked, clarified. Lesh, may I? Lesh, do you mind if, Lesh, what do you think about, Lesh is my husband. Alexei Dmitrievich Chernyshov, 61 years old, an engineer on a pension, a man who never once raised a hand to me, never once called me names, never once directly forbade me anything. He simply never noticed, the way people do not notice wallpaper, the way they do not notice a radiator. It is there, it warms the room, it works. Why look at it? I am sitting in seat 14F by the window. I chose the window deliberately, though at first I wanted the middle. Safer, I thought. Then I decided. If you are going to do something for the first time, do it properly. Look out the window, see the clouds, understand what the earth looks like when one is lifting away from it. The plane has not yet taken off. People are settling in, bustling about, stuffing bags into the overhead bins. The stewardess is explaining seatbelts, oxygen masks, emergency exits. I listen carefully. I am 57, and I have never heard these instructions in real life, only in films. The seat beside me is empty, the middle one. Behind it sits a man about my age, perhaps a little older. Gray-haired, neatly trimmed, in glasses with a thin frame. He is reading a book, a thick one, not a phone, a real paper book. I try to read the title on the cover, but cannot. It is far away, and my glasses are at the bottom of my bag beneath the sandwiches. The plane begins to move, slowly, heavily, like an old bus pulling out of a parking lot. My heart is pounding so hard I think the man beside me can hear it. I grip the armrests, palms damp. Good heavens, I am 57. I lived through the 90s. The default. 3 tyrannical bosses. Renovating a kitchen in a 2-room Khrushchevka flat. And I am afraid like a child. Go. The engines roar. The ground rushes past the window faster and faster, and then it is gone. No, not gone. It is dropping away, and I am rising. I am pressed into my seat, and for 1 second I stop breathing. Not from fear, From awe. I am flying. Flying. 57 years old, and at last I am flying. I saved for the ticket for a year, 376 days, to be exact. It began this past April, when I was standing in line at Magnet and noticed a magazine on the rack with a photograph. Curonian spit, sand, pines. Water so smooth it seemed as though someone had stretched a silk cloth from horizon to horizon. I looked at that photograph and felt something inside me tighten. Not painfully, rather tenderly, like when you remember the smell of your mother's house and know you will never return there again. I did not buy the magazine. For 20 rubles was too much for pictures. But that evening I went online and began looking at photographs. Kaliningrad, once Nigsburg, the cathedral, the fishing village, the embankment, amber, and sea. The Baltic Sea, grey, cold, boundless. I had never seen the sea. That too sounds ridiculous. 57 years old and not once. But that was how things had turned out. More precisely, that was how I had allowed them to turn out. When I was 22, Lisha and I got married. He had just started at the factory, and I was working as a nurse in a clinic. Money was tight. What see, IRA? Once we get on our feet, then we'll go. I nodded. Of course, it made sense to get on our feet first. 2 years later Nastia was born, then Dima 3 years after that. And getting on our feet became even harder. Nappies, milk kitchens, sick leaves. Mum, buy this. Mum, I want that. Mum, I wet myself. What see? What are you talking about? When Nastia was 10 and Dima 7, Lisha's mother broke her femoral neck and was moved in with us. My mother-in-law was, let us say, not an easy woman. She liked to repeat. Irina, you don't work. Though I worked shifts in the treatment room. So at least keep the house in order, as is proper. And I did. For 2 years I kept after her, after the house, after the children, and after my husband, who would come home from the factory, eat supper, and disappear into the television like into a burrow. Click, and he was gone. He was there at the table, eating my borscht, and yet he was not there. The sea can wait. Then came the 90s, and Lisha was laid off. For half a year he sat at home, staring at the wall and drinking, not in binges, carefully, in an intelligent sort of way. A bottle of beer in the evening, then 2, then what's wrong with that? I took a second job as a night carer for an old man in Shkyolkovo. Came home at 6 in the morning, made porridge for the children, took them to school, slept 3 hours, and went to my shift at the clinic. What see? Have you lost your mind? Then Lisha found work again. Then the children went to university. Then Nastia married. Then Dima moved to Novosibirsk. Then silence. No, not silence. Emptiness. When Dima last called and said he would not come for New Year's because his wife Kadia's parents were in Krasnodar and they had decided to go there, I put down the phone and sat on a stool. In the kitchen, Lisha was watching football. From the room came the commentator's voice. I sat on the stool and thought. And who am I now? At 34, I was Lisha's wife, Nastia, and Dima's mother, Raisa Fyodorovna's daughter-in-law, the nurse from room 3. And now the children had gone. My mother-in-law had died 8 years ago. At work they cut my hours, moved me to part-time, then politely suggested I consider a well-earned rest. And I remained. Irina Chernyshova, 55 years old, without a profession, without a hobby, without friends. Because when you are 30 and never, friends somehow dissolve when there is no dream. No, one dream had remained after all. A long ago, quiet dream, hidden so deeply that I had almost forgotten it myself. The sea. The plane had reached altitude. Outside the window there was nothing. White. Clouds, mist. I do not know. I had never seen the world from such a height. 10,000 meters, the captain announced over the speaker. 10,000 meters. I tried to imagine that distance and could not. For me, the greatest height in life had been the 8th floor, Nastia's mother-in-law's flat, where I had gone for the engagement visit. I loosened my grip on the armrests. My hands hurt from clenching them so hard. Leaning back in the seat, I closed my eyes and remembered. I was 18. I stood in the corridor of our apartment on Baumanskaya, back when it was still my grandmother's, back when the ceilings were high, the walls yellow, and I held a letter in my hands. A letter from the Leningrad Pedagogical Institute. I had been accepted to philology. Dormitory provided. Scholarship. 40 rubles. My mother stood beside me, her face in a strange expression, half joy, half fear. Little Irina, but it's Leningrad. That's far away. Mum, it's 6 hours on the train. And Lisha? You and Lisha have only just, we met in January at the skating rink in Sokolniki. He skated over to me when I fell, helped me up, and had such hands, big, warm, reliable. I thought then. These are hands one could hold onto for a lifetime. He was 22. Studying evenings at Bauman and working at the factory. Serious, steady, one of those men about whom my mother said. A proper one. He did not drink, did not chase after girls, came every Friday with flowers. Always 3 carnations. Always 3. When I showed him the letter from Leningrad, he did not say, "Don't go." He said something else. But think about it. 4 years there, and I'm here. It's 4 years. Why do you need pedagogy? You'll settle in here. He did not forbid me. He reasoned calmly, logically, like an adult. And I, 18, in love and cowardly, heard in his words what I wanted to hear. He loves me. He is afraid to lose me. He wants us to be together. And Leningrad? Well, what of Leningrad? Big city, strangers, a dormitory for 40 rubles. Frightening. So I did not go. My mother sighed. My grandmother shook her head. My friend Sveta said, "Irka, you're an idiot." Lisha hugged me and said, "You'll see, everything will be fine. We'll manage together." 39 years. 39 years have passed since then. Sveta lives in Petersburg, teaches at the university. She has an office overlooking the Neva. We do not keep in touch, we drifted apart somehow. But I see her photographs on Odnoklasniki. She stands on the embankment, gray-haired, beautiful, in a long coat, and smiles the way people smile who are living their own lives. Their own. And whose life was I living? The stewardess rolled her trolley down the aisle, offering water, juice, coffee. I asked for water. My hands were still trembling, but now not from fear, from excitement. I am flying. I really am flying. This is not a dream. Not a fantasy I used to run through my head while standing by the stove. It is real. The water in the plastic cup was cold. I drank in small sips and wondered when I had last done something for myself. Not for Lisha, not for the children, not for the house, for myself. I remembered. 3 years ago I wanted to sign up for drawing classes. I had seen a notice in the stairwell. Watercolor for beginners. Wednesday, 6 p.m. Progress House of Culture. I came home and said to Lisha, "I want to take drawing classes." Drawing? You mean pictures? Watercolor, Lisha. Landscapes, still lives. And supper on Wednesday? I get home from work earlier. He did not say no. He did not forbid me. He asked a question. And in that question lies the whole of our marriage. Not a ban, but a reminder that I had duties, that my dinner was more important than watercolor, that I was a function, not a person. I did not sign up. 2 years ago, a woman from the clinic, not a friend exactly, but someone with whom I sometimes drank coffee from the machine, Taisia, invited me on a one-day bus tour. Suzdal. Departure at 7 a.m., return at 10 p.m., 3,000 rubles with lunch. I almost agreed. I even put the money aside. And then Lisha said that on Saturday Nastya and Genya were coming, and we needed to set the table. So I stayed. Set the table. Nastya and Genya sat for 2 hours, ate, talked about their mortgage, and left. I washed the dishes and thought of Suzdal, of the white monastery walls, of mead I had never tasted, of Taisia, who later told how she had bought a little clay whistle there and blown into it the whole way back, making the entire bus laugh. I did not go. A year ago I saw that photograph in Magnet, Curonian Spit. And something inside me shifted. Not broke, no. Shifted. Like a heavy wardrobe standing in one place for 30 years, and then someone gave it the slightest push, just a centimeter, and it turned out there was a door behind it. I began to save. It was humiliating. No, that is not the word. It was secretive, like a spy operation. I went to the shops, bought everything as usual, bread, milk, grains, meat, and kept the change. Sometimes 50 rubles, sometimes 100, sometimes, if I was lucky with a promotion, 200. I put it into a tin box from biscuits. The box sat on the top shelf of the kitchen cupboard, behind the old tea service we had not used since 2008. Lisha did not know. Not because I lied, but because he never asked. He never asked how much I spent on groceries. He gave me a fixed sum each month, and that was the end of his involvement in the household economy. I could buy foie gras and champagne with that money, or macaroni and tin stew. It made no difference to him. So long as dinner was on the table at 7 in the evening, so long as the shirts were ironed, so long as the house was quiet when he watched the news. In a year the tin box had accumulated 17,400 rubles. A one-way ticket Moscow-Kaliningrad cost 68,800. I had only enough left for a small hotel on the outskirts. I found it on Avito. 3,000 for 2 nights. And for food, and the entrance fee to the Curonian Spit, and the bus. I calculated everything to the ruble, to the minute, as I had calculated the family budget for 34 years. Only this time, for myself. When I told Lisha I was going to Taisia's dacha for 3 days, he did not even raise his eyes from the phone. Soup is in the fridge. Enough for 3 days. And there are cutlets in a container. That's all. No questions. Not why, not who this Taisia was, not why for 3 days, nothing. I could have said I was going to the moon and he would have replied. Soup is in the fridge. I stood in the hallway with my packed bag and waited. Waited for what? I don't know. He would get up, come over, say, are you all right? You've been a bit off lately. Maybe he would hug me, maybe just look at me. Really look, not through me as usual. He did not get up. I left. In the taxi to Domodedovo I sat in the back seat and looked out at Moscow. Zyubkovsky Lane, the Garden Ring, Andropov Avenue, Mukut, the grey city in April sludge. I watched it and thought. Strange, I have lived here all my life, and I can't remember when I last saw Moscow like this. Not from the kitchen window, not from the minibus on the way to the clinic, but like this, through glass, slowly, attentively, as though saying farewell. The driver turned on the radio. Some unfamiliar song, a young female voice, words about love, about distance, about not returning. I listened and thought. This is about me, not about the man who left, but about me, the one who will not return. Not in the sense of never coming home. I will return. In 3 days I'll come back to the same flat, the same kitchen, the same Lisha with his phone. But I will no longer be the same. I could feel it. Like you feel the weather changing, nothing has changed yet, and already your skin knows a storm is coming. At the airport I became lost. Not physically, morally. People passed by with suitcases, talking on phones, drinking coffee from paper cups, looking at the boards. They knew what to do. They had done it 1,000 times. And I stood in the middle of the departure hall not understanding where to go. Where is check-in? What is a gate? Why do I need a boarding pass if I already have a ticket? I approached a woman in uniform and, so no one would hear, whispered. Excuse me, how does one get on a plane? She did not laugh. She smiled gently, patiently, the way one smiles at children, and explained. Check-in, security, gate, boarding, step by step.